My name is Paula Tognarelli, and I am the director of the Griffin Museum. I've been there close to 12 years. And the associate director of the Griffin Museum is also here, Frances Jacobek, who's taking photographs. Give her a hand. Couldn't do it without her. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to do some advertising for the Griffin, and I hope I don't bore you. Luckily, we're going into our slow season, so it's not that many things. Yoga for Artists has come to the Griffin Museum. The goal is to have an artist who is also a yoga instructor help people support their art habits through yoga. On October 11th and 12th, Christopher Chadbourne, who is a photographer that is published, I've put his book in the back table. He specializes in shooting state fairs. He is going to lead a group to the Topsfield Fair, start out at the Griffin to talk about street photography. In the afternoon, you'll all trek up to Topsfield Fair and shoot the fair, and then the next day come back and do a critique at the Griffin. And there is also Focus Awards that are coming to the Griffin on October 24th and 25th. And what this is an international event. We celebrate people that have elevated the medium of photography, not photographers, but those like curators, historians, conservators, writers. And our past awardees have gotten our MacArthur Fellows, or running the National Geographic right now, or Deborah Willis is now the nominee by President Obama to be on the Arts Council of the United States. So these are pretty movers and shakers in photography. We are going to give an award to Jim Dow, who is a professor at the museum school. We're giving an award to Becky Senf, who is a curator at the Center for Creative Photography. Ansel Adams, his work is housed there. And she also is a dual curator at the Phoenix Art Museum. She's one that we should be watching, and we certainly have been. We're also giving an award to the Indie Photo Book Library, who really has spawned the flux of photo books being so popular these days. And Frances? Ellen Spring, who has a blog called What Will You Remember? She's a young, actually she's not that young, she's my age. She seems younger than me. But anyway, she was a neurologist who decided she had it with our brains. And she's gone, and now she writes about photography all over the country. We're going to have a dinner on the 24th with the backdrop of an exhibition called Horace and Agnes, which is a love story about a horse named Horace and a squirrel named Agnes. And they're friends who have flaws. I've put some cards at the back of the room for shows that we have upcoming and that you may find of interest. And now to talk about where we're going this afternoon with Pecha Kucha. Can everybody say that word? It's kind of fun. Pecha Kucha. The funny thing is, they say that Pecha Kucha is for creativity, not profit. They're full of shit. They charge everybody who says the word Pecha Kucha $200. So it's a practice that is really skirting the globe. It is now in 700 cities worldwide. It was founded by an architectural I can't believe I said shit. I'm sorry.
Now you said it
twice. It was founded by a Japanese architectural firm, and it was meant to put a new spin on presentations, and it certainly has. What will happen is that we have to say powered by, this is a commercial, but if I don't do this, they'll sue me. I'm standing in front of it? Oh, but I can, Oh, that's true. Over this way. Is that perfect? Okay. Um, so they give you a speech that you have to do, and we can't say that this is a Pecha Kucha event. It is powered by Pecha Kucha, or we'll get sued. So in the future, as I've told other Pecha Kucha nights, is that we're going to have a code word. Maybe it will be Picha Keeper Kuchi Kuchi. That means that we're going to have an event like we're going to do today here for you. The images are all going to change every 20 seconds, and there'll be 20 images. So believe it or not, 6 people are going to present, and we'll be out of here in less than an hour. It really should take, after I'm done, it'll take 40 minutes. There are 6 photographers, and it is brought to you by the Griffin Museum of Photography. For those of you that don't know, the Griffin was founded in 1992 by Arthur Griffin. Arthur Griffin was a photojournalist, shot for Life magazine, Time, Collier's. He really came from the era of the photojournalism when it was golden. He had 2 covers for Life magazine. And he founded the museum. In the beginning, it was a private foundation, but after his death in 2001, it became a 501c3 organization. You may not know this, but the Griffin Museum has an international reach. The people in Winchester don't know who we are, but the people in China do. I hope you'll get the word out on us that we exist on Shore Road. Besides the 3 galleries at the Griffin, we have 4 satellite galleries, one at the Stoneham Theater, one at Digital Silver Imaging in Belmont, and we no longer are doing the Aberjona and the Cambridge Homes. It became too much for us because we just got 2 galleries in Boston, one in the South End in SOA, called the Griffin at SOA, and one in Downtown Crossing. On 530 Harrison. And besides exhibitions, we do a lot of programming, and I want to say that they are inclusive. We are not photo snobs, and it really is for all ages. We try to, we're kind. Let's put it that way. I hope we are anyway. So the photographers today are going to go in this order. And if I mention your name, can you just stand up? Francis Jacobak. You're not going today. You're on your toes. Good. Gail Samuelson. Astrid Reichwitz. Jim Nicholson. Michael Donner, there he is over there. Rick Colson, and Meg Birnbaum. Okay, and the first one up today is Gail Samuelson. Leave it here? Yeah.
Good afternoon. Let's see. Okay.
You do want her to hold it?
You want me to hold it? Is this yours? Oh, really? Okay.
I'm sorry, Gail.
Testing, testing. Is it going? It works? Okay. Okay. Here we go. Is it going? Sorry. I worked as a professional photographer for 25 years, making portraits and documenting events and other people's lives. But when I turned 60, I started making self-portraits. My husband John teases me that I finally found my favorite subject. I photograph at my house in Sherburne. There's lots of color and window light there. My early images have a formal quality. I use my body, often wearing nightgowns and bras, as the form, and the inside of my house as the landscape. In the beginning, I did not show my face at all or looked away. I'm always anxious and uncomfortable when other people take my picture. I never like myself in photographs because the expected smile always feels false to me. Some of the first photographs I made are quite the opposite. They are awfully dreary. I took note and kept shooting. I started to experiment with gesture, body language, and camera position. I lie with my legs akimbo, take a few shots, and see what I've got. Time slows down as the sun moves across the windows of my youngest daughter's bedroom, which became my studio. I wait until I have the place to myself, no dog, no husband, no grandchild, and start to work. I don't really have a plan or a specific formula. I just try different things, like drying my hair with a colorful towel in a sun-filled room. This way I can include both my hands and my face in a single image. Like many women my age, I am obsessed with my hands. Though I have arthritis in my wrist from holding a camera too much, I think my fingers still look pretty good. No brown spots, no big knuckles, unlike my mother's or aunts at the same age. Daily rituals have a way of slowing things down. Watching the bath fill with water, noticing freshly washed hair and skin, having a quiet dinner alone. Some days are a whole lot better than others. As I worked on my project, I became braver and less tentative. I discovered that I could take a direct, unflinching picture of my face. I could hold my ground. I was ready to improvise and become much, much less formal. I learned a lot from this photograph, Hot Rollers. I learned that as an actor in my photographs, I could convey personality and mood, and I could have some fun with it. I overcame the impulse to censure an idea too quickly. Posing with hot rollers on your head is not for the meek. My direction shifted as I started to unpack boxes of family keepsakes stored in my basement. I found a sock knit by my mother for my father when they got engaged, with a note promising the other after their wedding. The second sock never came, but the marriage lasted 57 years. Some of the things I found were my Aunt Florence's paintings, loose rhinestones, and paintbrushes. I wanted to bring these objects and the people who wore them to life, and so I started an adult game of dress-up. Beginning with a piece of jewelry, hat or blouse, I apply makeup and arrange my hair. I complete my new look by adding layers of fabric, fresh flowers, and accessories, and I style the background using scarves and paper. Then in front of the camera, dressed in the clothes of another, I enjoy the visit. There were some very personal items that I assume were meant to be found. Letters from daughter to mother tied with a ribbon. My aunt's bridal handkerchief folded for over half a century, and a postcard from her honeymoon in Atlantic City. Born in 1912, my Aunt Florence studied fashion design in Paris, and with my uncle, produced a line of women's dresses on Madison Avenue in the 1950s and 60s. A businesswoman with no children, she had style, confidence, and toughness. My mother had a box labeled antique bras. A long-line bra still had its tag on it. I can see why it was never worn. I tried but couldn't get it on. What a difference from my generation of women. Many of us stopped wearing bras or even burned them back in women's lib in the 1970s. My mother was the youngest of 3 girls and only one to go to college. She met my father on a train traveling north from the city. Though she didn't smoke, she bummed a cigarette and to lure my father out to the platform, allowing him the opportunity to light it for her. 2 years later, I came along. My father asked me to make 8 copies of his favorite Navy portrait, one for each child and grandchild. After he died, I found the 8 copies with other unexpected treasures, like this navigational notebook from his service in the Pacific during World War II, decorated with a pinup girl. My father was very proud of his Navy days. He unfurled his string of Japanese invasion money as he told the same story to my brothers and me over and over again. I put on his well-worn officer's uniform the first time I ever dressed up as a man. I liked being in drag so much that I dressed up as my husband, John. I'd tape on a fake beard and mustache, put on a sweater vest, and try to get inside his mind. I'm not an avid reader, not a rower. I didn't grow up quarreling with siblings in a large family and a famous dad. So I can wear his clothes, but I can't get inside his mind. I received some of the best advice about photography from Steve Trelentes at Mass College of Art. He asked us to find the bigger idea in our pictures, or what he called the platter. I think the platter here is that I connect with my family by wearing their clothes, photographing their objects, and sharing their stories. Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you very much for being here today. My name is Astrid Reischwitz, and I would like to invite you to come with me on a journey to my childhood home. I've created my project, Stories from the Kitchen Table, to honor and preserve a fading way of life in my childhood home. Home can mean many different... It doesn't work? Sure, I will. Okay. So home can mean many different things for an individual. It certainly can mean a location. For me, it means traveling back home to my family's old farmhouse in a very small village in the northern part of Germany. And it's the last remaining and untouched house in the village. Everything else in its closer surroundings has been renovated, updated, and modernized. And in part, I feel responsible for the situation because I have left. So I feel very much the need to document this old farmhouse I grew up in, and also the people who have passed through over the decades and even centuries, and also what someday very soon will be left behind. Other ingredients of home that I experience when I travel back are the flavors of dishes, is the light shining through windows into the very dark interior, shining onto old furniture and photographs and knickknacks, old kitchen tools that have been there ever since I was even born. But most of all, home for me means gathering around the kitchen table and to have lunch or dinner with family and friends and to share stories, old and new. Some of these stories found its way into my composite images that are based on old family photographs and snapshots that I combine with what I see today when I travel home, and also images I take based on my emotional response that I have with the story and with the people in the picture. I also add flowers and old fabric. So these fragmented images of fabric are based on dish towels, old tablecloths, napkins, and wall hangings, dating back to 1799, and they have been in my family and passed down from generation to generation. After starting this project, I became aware how important flowers were when I grew up. In summertime, they were everywhere, covering the grounds, the garden, decorating the house, the interiors. They have been stitched onto clothes and fabric, etched into pottery and painted onto furniture. My grandmother taught me games and tales about flowers. For example, a tale about a pansy. So when you look at the petals of the pansy, and a pansy in German is called Stiefmütterchen, which means little stepmother. So each petal represents a dress. So the petal here on the bottom represents the dress of the stepmother. And the stepmother is very fortunate because she is able to sit on 2 chairs. So when you look very closely, you can see that there are actually 2 chairs under the petal. So the petals across represent the dresses of the natural daughters. And the natural daughters are also fortunate because they can sit on 1 chair. And the top petals represent the dresses of the stepdaughters, and the stepdaughters have to sit together on only 1 chair. So my grandmother was a great influence, and she was actually the keeper of keys to a local farmhouse museum that was located across the street. And she was a keeper of local history because she was able to give the tours. She knew every aspect about farming and the interior of the house. What did I do? Okay. So my grandmother was also the keeper of local history, and she was a keeper of family stories and tales. And very often, these family stories have been passed on by small groups of women, called Spinneklump, which translate to spin club. So in former times, these women would meet on a regular basis, especially in wintertime, to spin the wool and do some knitting and stitching, while all the time they were talking and sharing stories. And so this group would meet the first time probably in their early 20s, and they would stay together their whole life until death would part them. So I created all these images not only to keep those old tales and stories alive in my memory, but also to honor my family and especially the women who lived and worked under the roof of this old farmhouse. And after starting this project, I realized how important some of the old, or what kind of an influence this old farmhouse was for me. For example, clothespin. I think a clothespin is a very important object that represents a certain kind of culture. And you can find the clothespin not only here in my images, but also in different projects that I work with. And also the bedrooms. I found the bedrooms can tell a lot about a person's life and a personality of an individual. So I started working on a bedroom project after taking photos in this farmhouse. So I would like to thank you very much today for listening to my stories. And one last word. Please remember that everything I told you today is also just another story. So thank you very much.
Okay. my project is called Pyrotechnic, and not surprisingly, it's about fireworks. And this project started when I started taking my daughter to the local fireworks shows in the small town of Maine that we live in. And you'll notice this is not actually a shot during a fireworks show. Those are actually really hard to get, but we tried something with the little planetarium instead. So the hard part of these fireworks images is coming up, taking something like fireworks, which is so often photographed and so cliche, and coming up with something unusual. And so this is my first attempt, which is basically taking a firework and making it black and white. And I was intrigued by it, but didn't quite get to where I wanted to go. So I decided to try to start experimenting with different things. The first thing I did was basically crop in tighter with a longer lens and to make it more abstract. And also, though it's a little hard to tell here, but make it more of a warm tone. And the warm tone, in a lot of ways, for me, was trying to evoke platinum prints. I'm a digital printer by trade, and that's what these are. But the warm tone and the platinum prints have always been one of my favorite looks. And so as I worked through this project, and this started about 3 years ago, I found that the ones that really resonated with me were the ones that reminded me of forms from nature, things that looked like objects from the natural world. And so I decided to really kind of focus in on that area. And this is another one of my early ones, but it is one of the first ones that really kind of had that feel to me, where this one, I think of it as basically like grasses in the tide, but everybody has a different opinion on that. But my real big breakthrough mentally on this project was doing the idea of inversion. And inversion is something I do on the computer that essentially makes black become white, white become black. And you get this reverse image. And what I really loved about this look was how it really kind of resonated with traditional art forms like etchings and works on paper. And is a further level of abstraction that goes beyond and taking it further and further away from fireworks themselves. And I think that these inverted images and the warm tone were my attempt to, again embrace the natural world look that I was going for here. And another thing about this project is, even though I've gone with these inversions, my body of work actually includes both, the dark ones and the light ones. I found that having both of these types of images gives me a lot of power to have, create new looks with sequencing and everything else. And I try each image both ways. Some images look better one way or the other, and it's usually very clear. Now, with any kind of abstract body of work, everybody brings their own history and life story to the table. For me, my first career was in the sciences, and so I see everything in terms of science and nature, because that's my passion. But I found that, showing these to different people across New England, that everybody has their own views. People who have a nautical background see things that are like ships. People who have a fashion background see things that look like fabric. Like this one here, to me, seemed like lightning, but other people thought it looked like hair follicles, or other times I've heard all kinds of different things for really each of these images. And I think that's one of the really interesting things about this project for me. This one's one of my favorites. It kind of makes me think of like an insect or something like that. But one thing about capturing fireworks close in like this is that you capture all this detail that our eye cannot see because it happens so quickly. So when you see a large print of this one, all those little tendrils up here, it's almost infinite detail you can see. I was on an artist residency recently and taught a group of 6th graders, and it was amazing the things they came up with for what they saw in these images. My favorite one on this one was a horse's mane. And this was from a very rural part of Maine, so that was their background. This one I've also heard waterfall and strand of DNA and all kinds of stuff. This is one of my favorites also. Now, when I say the natural world, that's a pretty broad category. And I think that it could be something on like a really large scale. Like this one makes me think of stars and comets and things in space, kind of a macroscopic view. But that natural world also ranges down to the smallest level. Things that are, like people often see this one as something that's on a cellular level or something that's a microscopic level. This one also looks like Christmas lights to me. I used it for my holiday card last year, but that's not really a natural world. But as this project has advanced, I've become more and more abstract with it. And I'm looking for things that are, in one way, well, part of it is I have a very abstract look by nature, I think. But also I'm trying to embrace the natural forms and also get further away from fireworks themselves. This is the one that, I have a secret name for everything in my head. This one is the birch bark one, but I try not to give the secret names, which is why they're secret, because I find that I don't want to skew what people come up with on their own. This is a new image. This is the first kind of public display of this image. It's from this summer. I love the motion of this one. It feels like a feather with at least to me, with the wind going by. This is another new one that I really love. I love the draping look you get from the fireworks. I don't really know what this one looks like. My first thought was actually like a figure, almost a Grim Reaper, which is a little depressing, but since we're in October and Halloween, maybe that's somewhat appropriate, but I just do love the look. Motion is a big key to this body of work for me. There's the motion, compositional motion, like how your eye moves across the frame, but also motion of the firework. All these are 1-second exposures, so you get some movement of the exploding firework. And there's also, in some cases, motion of the camera itself too. So all three of those types of motion combined to create a lot of interesting looks, and each one's a little bit of a surprise. This is the last of my brand new images, and it really kind of embodies a lot of what I'm doing now with the project. To me, it looks kind of like two elephants with the trunks on the right and the head side by side, but it has the mark-making aspect and the inverted look. And so this is the last image, and this is the only one of my fireworks images that has something from the real world in it. It actually has a near full moon in it. And I think that and so the firework is on the left there, but which kind of, to me, feels like a little bit like a tree. But I just love the overall look of that image, and anyone who's looked at my other work, I'm really into night photography, and my other big project is on full moon, so it's kind of a nice bridge to that body of work. So thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of the presentation.
I just hit the space bar. I'll just hit the arrow. Okay. Great. So when I started taking photographs, I was just taking kind of individual random photographs and a lot of portraits as well. But I noticed that I was most interested in trying to kind of tell a narrative or kind of highlight a little story. One of the best pieces of advice I ever received was from a friend and mentor of mine, Keith Carter, and he said, take your technique and now apply it into a project. And then one of the first projects I had, I set up a backdrop and only allowed myself one frame to photograph. And I think it was that, creating limitations allowed me to kind of be more free with my work. And I started to create little mini projects that had more narrative and maybe a little more concept for me. An image like this, starting to kind of explore the idea of where we are and our relationship to ourselves and to the world around us. I've always photographed with film, and I started to notice while working on one of my first projects that I'm interested in the tangible and tactile quality of film, and started to embrace imperfections and dust and grain, and started to really notice gesture. And in the next project, my more serious project, Silent Moan, I really started to fully output that and work with the photograph more as an object and to kind of push it further than just a two-dimensional image, more drawn towards sculpture or painting, where the image itself is also this object and this artifact. And so I would burn and title and layered layers of encaustic that you can't see on top of the print, all to try to make the image a little bit more than what I just saw there. And I would burn and scratch and freeze, even just pretty much destroy a negative any way I could, because I was trying to connect with the way that I was seeing the world, and the photograph wasn't fully allowing that to come through. I wasn't supposed to show this slide. My wife didn't want me to, but I thought I'm not a good painter. I'm not even a painter really, but I started to notice that my medium, whatever I'm working in, I'm still kind of after the same thing. And it's this idea of our relationships to our world and to ourselves, and then embracing imperfections. I find that imperfections are in and of themselves a way of perfection. I'm really drawn to the aesthetic wabi-sabi that embraces imperfections. And then this newest body of work that we're going to show here is Notes on a Paper Universe. And I just finished this up recently, and it's conceptually a project that I'm exploring kind of how the constructions of perception and reality and fact and fiction, and how these lines are blurred, and that a reality, that a fact is always mediated through 5 senses of our minds. And so it's a conceptual leap, but still doing the similar things in the work, where I'm working on the negative, on the print. And then I have simplified this project as well. I've removed some of the, kind of the overburden of things on top of the print. An image like this, I constructed in a parking lot. I found these toy stars, and I thought, how wonderful that these toy plastic stars that represent the world, the universe, in a way, in a roundabout way, actually came from the real stars that they represent. And so this idea of time, impermanence, has always been with me in my work, and really started to come through in this body of work. And this that was titled Solipsism. And the whimsical has always kind of been there in my work, underlying, and started to come through more. Again, showing really the direct line of fact and fiction, and wanting to point that and highlight that and kind of build my own worlds. I started to work on 4x5 film as well. And the hand-drawn, the handmade, the scratch has always been there before, and now I'm doing it kind of right before I photograph. Still drawing within the image, but not actually on the negative anymore, and really drawing my own kind of fictions, a fictional narrative, very much motivated by the writings of Borges and that genre that I'm kind of after, of understanding the truth, and that truth is a slippery thing to try to define. And I started to also work in triptychs and diptychs, because time and impermanence is one of the subjects that I'm always after, but then showing that through time of the photograph, that a photograph is just a fraction of a second, but that if we place them next to each other, we can see that change of time. Also wanted to show that what we see in a photograph is not real. I'm interested in subverting what we understand about a photograph, and that we see a moon, that it's a photograph of a moon, but this isn't a photograph of a moon. It's a photograph of a computer screen, and it's that play of photography that allows us to kind of enter these worlds. And this image is titled My Paper Universe, for the idea that this whole world that I'm after, that all this work that I'm doing is on this impermanent piece of paper, that this whole world will not stay the same way. And I love showing images, and our technology is wonderful, but I always believe that it's not a photograph until it's a print. So I urge you to get out and go to the Griffin and look at prints. Try to hold prints and negatives if you can. And currently, you could see some of my prints up at Panopticon Gallery until the end of the month. Thanks so much.
I'm Rick Colson, and before I start, I just want to thank Paula for inviting me, and Francis, and my fellow creative photographers, who are all a tough act to follow. I also just want to share a couple of things about my work. First, one is that often I deal with secrets and with irony, and I have a favorite joke, and I hope that you'll keep it in mind as you look at my images. My favorite joke is about the man who overdosed on varnish. It was a terrible death, but a beautiful finish. Secrets in Plain Sight are fictions based on our common realities and experiences. First in pictures, then in words. We've all been there. The way Thomas remembered it, the house he grew up in was completely without color. Now that's a perfect metaphor, he thought. At times, we have all needed protection, shelter, safety, and most of all, a true friend. On those really bad nights when his father would be mean, he would run next door to the bar where Adele would let him stay until he fell asleep. We've all felt empty at one time or another. We've all tried to fill the void that just didn't work. Stan couldn't convince her that compromise was a good thing, that no one ever got everything they wanted. She just felt like something was always missing. Most of us have experienced profound loss, someone or something gone that's so painful we just can't understand it. As a kid, Paul loved the plane, but after his brother was killed in Iraq, he simply found it confusing. Many of us have held desperately onto ideas that were bound to fail and found letting go just too difficult. Edward doubted it was the right idea, but his father became increasingly desperate to keep the shop open. His mother had been right, though. It wouldn't work. Every one of us has at some point denied the problems that we have. After Ted lost his job, he became obsessed with the minutiae of the game, RBIs, the arcane history of the infield fly rule, the exact number of stitches on the ball. It wasn't until he spent their entire savings on the trip that his wife became alarmed. Few of us fit comfortably into the gender roles or other normalities the world has prescribed for us. Many of us are uncomfortable with this. Harold's father told him he had gender issues. No shit, Sherlock, he said before his father hit him. You're not the only one who said shit, Paul. So. You've probably had your own search for meaning, order, and predictability in a sometimes chaotic life. Colin believed in logic, and it disturbed him when he couldn't understand. His wife, on the other hand, was much better at taking these things in stride. Depression, so common in our world, creates apathy, discomfort, and a state of longing, two opposites that can make it feel like there's no exit. Left, right, or straight ahead, it didn't make two shits worth of difference. She just wished it wasn't so frigging cold. Some of us turn inward, and others turn to religion to create difficult-to-find answers. The house was nearly falling down, and he'd been dead for years, but Sally still remembered the gray fall day when he buried the bathtub, half above ground to house the statue of the Virgin. He was convinced that Jesus would save them. Fears and anxieties rule some of our lives until we find a way out of their grasp, and we often find ourselves fighting self-fulfilling prophecies. It made her anxious when things went well. She was depressed when they went badly, though, and fear was never far away. We sometimes manifest denial to protect ourselves when things get just too hard or feel just too risky. They told him at the clinic it was called agoraphobia. But he thought, that was a lot of crap. I'd just like to stay home, he said, that's all. There's nothing wrong with that. Some of us only find comfort in familiar surroundings and the presence of old friends and cherished beliefs. We tend to cling on to these things. There was little else that comforted Esther these days, and she feared that she would soon be too old to get there, even on Sundays. Though it's sometimes true and sometimes not, we exist on the line between control and the absence of control. Now that everyone has finally gone, Jason thought about his summer job, lifeguard. It was a joke. He couldn't even save himself. We all need a compass from time to time, though many of us are far better than others at knowing our true north. She was haunted by the idea that something was not quite right. Though she had never been a believer, she asked for a sign, but the signals were too confused, and she soon gave up. Profound loss, the thing we fear most, can paralyze the best of us, at least for a time. It can be hard to remember that things do get better. After the child was diagnosed, the Ellsworth stopped picking up his things and insisted on leaving everything exactly as it was before. Life is often a struggle between the grandiose and the humble, and equilibrium often eludes us. She was damned if she would let her children grow up the way she had. When John told her they couldn't afford it, she became entrenched and even more determined that the house would make things perfect. If you have ever been betrayed, you know that it can feel like there's no one to turn to, no safe sanctuary. When she opened his dresser drawer and saw the photos, Maureen realized he was spying on her, and she was sure no one would listen to her side of the story. Sometimes just making the effort can be heroic. We have to at least try, though success is seldom as important as our journey. It took her the better part of the day to edge closer to the water. It was evening before the anguish overtook her, and she decided to return to her warm bed. We have all longed for simple solutions and sought external events in others to help save us. Raymond said his illness was like an abandoned theme park, empty, useless, no longer fun. Maybe if she came back, he might feel differently. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. And thank you, Paula and Francis, for thinking I could actually do this. Uh-huh. Push the button?
Yes.
What button?
Right arrow. The right arrow.
I'm getting there. My sister and I had a dark room in the attic of my parents' home when I was 12 or 13. We were obsessed with and influenced by the iconic photographs of the 1960s that we saw in Life and Look magazine. After art school, I couldn't figure out what my place in photography could be. I was too shy. I loved images that told stories, photographs that suggest a larger narrative, and that interest led me to graphic design and to art directing magazines, where I assigned and handled other people's photographs. Having no access to a darkroom and working long hours led me to put my camera away for a long time, and I consoled myself by grabbing odd moments to paint or make quilts using alternative photo-related processes. I collected dried seed pods and leaves and exposed them onto fabric. Eventually, I began photographing the botanicals with a real camera in the safety of my apartment. I was thinking a lot about the idea of reproduction and about my mother. These photos became titled Botanical Regenerations. I found myself thinking about photography again. It was in discovering the cultish plastic camera called Holga that my heart found a creative home. These toy cameras lack any sophisticated controls, but create a dreamy, soft, retro look. They seem to operate by some unexplainable inherent magic powered by the operator's desire to create. Like the advice to write what you know, I photographed my world of dog parks and swimming holes and called the work Daylight Savings. Timing is really bad. I was very lucky to grow up in an animal-loving house. As this was outside New York City, we were only allowed to have small creatures like guinea pigs, rabbits, toads, and frogs. An unplanned stop at an agricultural fair one summer led to 3 summers of photographing farm animals and eating fried dough for breakfast. The project was called Corn Dogs and Blue Ribbons. It was just totally amazing to me to be able to spend time with cows and horses and big animals and funny chickens. Each summer I got better at talking to strangers. I thought that the toy camera was a good camera to photograph this body of work with because most New England fairs are over 100 years old, and I thought that this gave it a timeless look. I had never collaborated with anyone before, but I was looking for something to work on indoors for the winter until the fairs started up again in the summer. A friend and I discussed our dreams of flying, and so for a short and wonderful time I had a model and we had space to create and build sets. I'll just go on. I'm very interested in the complexity and fluidity of identity. And I wanted to explore the idea of dual personalities coexisting happily in one person. It was time to step outside my comfort zone, learn how to photograph people, and deal with shyness by shooting people who were not shy. I started by approaching performers by email and offered free performance photos to help build trust. I researched each person before I approached them, and the project was called Person Persona. So these are pictures of people as they are in the character that they portray and as they are in real life. I discovered the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence while reading a local magazine while waiting for a performer to get dressed. I knew that I had come a long way from photographing seed pods at home, but I really wasn't sure about a room full of gay men wearing white face and crazy clothes. I put off approaching them for quite a while. I read everything that I could about their history, their manifesto, and found myself attracted by their desire to do good work. It has been close to 4 years now since they opened their doors to me. They inspire me, and I am in awe of their bravery and compassion. And they've become a new family to me. And they're coming right up. That's all I had to say. Thank you.